Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know who I am, my name is Shook. I make videos for NBA, make videos for NFL, also do a bunch of other stuff. All these videos they get posted on the subreddit right here. It's called DF Sports. You can find my posts. My username is Shook. I make updates throughout the day with all the news that comes out. You can ask me questions about the slate. I'll always reply to you. And then if you ever need to get a hold of me privately, you can do so on Twitter right here. So let's go over my lineups from Thursday night, and another phenomenal day. As you guys know, I show you my results every night so you can see if I'm winning player or not, losing player, etc., etc. Show you guys my results. You can gauge. So this one, I basically play cash games. Did well even with Aaron Rodgers. He was like almost 100% owned as he should have been. So yeah, went with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Aaron Rodgers, James Cook, Tyler Bass, Hardy. Core that I had for cash was Allen, Diggs, and Hardy. My tournament lineup was basically just a pivot, um, but I had Aaron Rodgers, so it didn't really matter. So my tournament lineup was basically my cash lineup, but I went Dalvin Cook over James Cook. I really like both the running backs, and yeah, um, you can see a nice, almost cashed with Rodgers. Was a few points out of the cash, so really unfortunate. But yeah, been a great start to the NFL season. And then if you're interested in joining my Discord, I'll have a link to that in this post, and then I will link this post in the comment section where I give you guys like cores, private videos, player pools, cash stuff, tournament stuff, etc. So let's go over the Viking side of this game first. So some injury stuff that we have. I believe Blankenship's out. Yeah, Bradbury's out. Gainwell's out. Fletcher Cox expected to go. So Darius Slay's probably going to be on Justin Jefferson, so he is the toughest matchup, obviously, of this group. But he's still a phenomenal play, right? 12 targets last game, 9 catches, 150 yards, 27 fantasy points without getting a touchdown. Now, definitely a tough spot here, kind of like with Stephon Diggs last week, but he still smashed. But Justin Jefferson's matchup proof, high floor, high ceiling, phenomenal play. Now, he's more expensive than Jalen Hurts. I might give the edge to Jalen Hurts, point per dollar, but I still think Jade is phenomenal play. As you guys know, if you're playing Justin Jefferson and captain, I always play the quarterback with that captain. As far as it's a wide receiver, if you don't, you're just not building good lineups, in my opinion. Correlation is everything. So Kirk Cousins going to be a good play. My only worry here is the Eagles' front seven, and they're probably going to be throwing the ball an absolute ton. So Vikings defense, they're horrible. So offense going to be throwing the ball a ton. Eagles' front seven is phenomenal. Could get a lot of pressure. Could force a lot of turnovers. That's my only concern. But yeah, make sure if you're playing, wide receiver captains, you're pairing them with the quarterback. And then I love Alexander Madison. I know, once again, Eagles front seven, but it's not really about him being good. It's about how much production and projected production that he is going to get and how many snaps he played. Alexander Madison played 47 of the possible 64 snaps. That's like 65 to 70% of the snaps. He was in for 26 passing plays. He's in for all the inside the 5 work. So you got a guy that's expected to get, like 10 to 15 touches on the ground. He's involved in the passing game. He's getting inside the 5. He's in there on inside the 5 stuff. And he's $7,600. I think it's a misprice, in my opinion. I think Madison looks great. I think Hawkinson's another really good tournament play. You can play him in cash. I just think he'll be lower owned than he should be. Another guy that's going to eat up a bunch of targets. Like I said, Vikings are probably going to be throwing the ball a ton. This game should be shooting out. Pretty high total. So I'm pretty high on Hawkinson. I'm also really high on Dallas Goedert after his stinker last week. And then you have Jordan Addison at 6,400, got 6 targets. Kid's very, very talented. My only concern here is he did only play about half the snaps. And then you have KJ Osborne, who basically played the entire game. So it's kind of what you want to do with these two wide receivers. If you want to go on, a guy that's going to play the entire game, that's less talented, or if you want to go with a guy that's going to play about half the game, that's obviously more talented. So, um, price point per dollar, I think personally for me, I'd rather just take the guy that's going to play the entire game, and he's cheaper. So maybe a slightly into KJ Osborne, but I think both are solid in the mid range. And then kickers. So here's the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand, a lot of people don't mention. Kickers are less viable to me in higher projected game totals because when you have super high scoring games, the skill position players are just going to acquire a lot more fantasy points than the kickers, which means the kickers are going to have a lot harder time at being optimal. Now, they're definitely going to be safe plays. I think they're solid values, but personally for me, especially in large field tournaments, I definitely would dock kicking exposure if you want to win large field tournaments in higher total games. That doesn't mean they can't get there. They can absolutely get there, but being optimal is a lot harder in higher scoring games. And another thing that I do want to mention that a lot of people don't understand is kickers actually do correlate pretty well with their quarterbacks. So quarterback scoring points, most likely the kicker scoring points. So a very, very good correlation with the kickers. So I always like the kickers. Vikings D, meh, whatever. And then we have Josh Oliver. So Oliver played, I believe, a decent chunk. He played 30 snaps, was in there on 13 pass plays. I actually think he's a solid punt at $800. Had 3 targets. If you told me Josh Oliver had 3 targets tomorrow, and he caught all 3 balls, I would probably play him. So I do like Oliver as a punt. And I think that's going to wrap it up for the Viking side of things. Let's move on to the Eagles side of things. So we'll go over captains and stuff at the end. Same thing with the Eagles. Also, with Kirk Cousins captain, if you're playing Kirk Cousins captain, I'm pairing him with 2 wide receivers. We'll throw KJ Osborne in there for now. You could include Madison since he is involved in the passing game, but we'll dock that a little bit. I don't really like playing quarterbacks at captain either. They have a lot harder time at being optimal unless it's like guys like Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, those types of guys. So same thing I said with Kirk Cousins. If you're playing Jalen Hurts as the captain, probably playing wide receivers with them. Same thing with like A.J. Brown at captain. I'm always going to play Jalen Hurts with him. So just make sure you're building good lineups like that. Correlation, like I said earlier, is very, very important. So love Jalen Hurts. This Vikings D is horrible, just absolutely god awful. High scoring game, should be a high scoring game, and obviously it's rushing upside. Obviously has a ton of touchdown upside. So love Jalen Hurts. I think AJ Brown's a really good pivot off Justin Jefferson. Had 10 targets last week, 7 receptions, had a modest fantasy score game, but I think it's an interesting pivot off JJ. I think JJ is going to be extremely popular, which leaves people not having a ton of salary to afford AJ Brown. So I think AJ Brown's a good pivot. And then you have Devontae Smith. I like the Eagles wide receivers for GPPs. Both these guys had pretty much about 50%, a little bit more than 50% of the target market share. Now that's not going to happen again. Dallas Goedert had 0 catches on 1 target, which is just a complete outlier. So don't overreact to that. But I like Brown. I like Smith for tournaments. And then we get to Dallas Goedert, who I like quite a bit at 5'8". I think the absolute slappies who look at box scores are not going to play him. I don't look at last year's matchups, but last year he absolutely feasted against the Vikings. I think he had like 5 catches on like 60 yards. Forget if he scored a touchdown or not. I'm not entirely sure. But after last week, yeah, love Goedert for tournaments. Here's the thing. Here is the thing with the Eagles defense. Here's the thing. They're probably going to be popular. And I'm probably going to fade. And they're probably going to nuke the slate. Because here's the thing. I actually think the Eagles D is a good play. I do. Now, if they're going to be like extremely, extremely popular, then I'm just going to fade. But I actually do think the Eagles D is a solid play. Tons of upside for the Eagles D with how much the Vikings are probably going to throw the ball. The sacks. And when defenses really have upside is when they're going up against teams who throw the ball a ton, teams that drop back a ton, right? You have upside for interceptions, you have upside for sacks, you have upside for fumble recoveries, pick sixes, really a lot when a team drop backs a decent amount. So Eagles D, it's yeah, I think they're good, but I think they'll be a bit overowned. Same kind of thing I mentioned with the kickers. Same thing applies to Jake Elliott here. I don't have a lean on which one I like more. Eagles in the past do go for it, sometimes on fourth down, but no lean there. And then we also have to talk about Kenneth Gainwell being out, and Rashad Penny obviously expected to suit up here. Quez Watkins, more of a downfield threat. I think he's a fine tournament play, has a big ceiling if they do target him downfield. So I do have interest in Watkins. And then we have to talk about, I'm not going to play Zacchaeus. And then we have to talk about the running back situation. So Nick Sirianni, in quotes, I believe it was today or yesterday, said they wanted to get the ball to DeAndre Swift more. They had some stuff drawn up for him, but it just didn't pan out. He didn't play a ton of snaps. He played like, I don't know, 20% of the snaps, if I recall, off memory. So, not good for Swift, but obviously now Gainwell's up. But you're inserting Penny now, who was a healthy scratch last week. Here's what I think a lot of the field is going to assume, and I think a lot of people are assuming, is that DeAndre Swift will be the starter. While I think that's a likely scenario, I would not be shocked if Rashad Penny started this game. Absolutely would not be shocked. So what I want to do with the Philly running backs is wait for news, wait for beat writers to respond to me on Twitter. I already messaged Dave Stu on Twitter to decide what I want to do with the running back situation here. So I think a lot of people are just assuming it's Swift, but I would not be shocked if it's Penny. They're also could mix him Boston Scott more. They still have 3 running backs here. So if we get news that Penny is going to be the starter and get bulk with the work, then he's a phenomenal value. If we get news that DeAndre Swift's going to be the starter and is going to get bulk with the work, he's a phenomenal value. Boston Scott's never going to do that. So he's definitely my least favorite. But gonna be keeping an eye on news with the Philadelphia running backs, and then I will make updates on my Reddit posts, so make sure you definitely check that out. And then let's go over some captains. So Justin Jefferson, Jalen Hurts, probably the optimal quarterback right now, probably my favorite captain. We'll throw AJ Brown in there. Alexander Madison, just because he's playing an absolute ton. TJ Hawkinson. If we get news on the Philly running backs, you could absolutely play like a Penny or Swift in the captain. Would lean away from it, but I think it's fine. And then I think that's it. I think I'm really only considering like Jefferson, Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Madison, TJ Hawkinson. If you want to go to like a Addison or Osborne or Goddard, I think that's solid too. Not going to play defense captain, not going to play kicker captains, just bad plays at captain in my opinion. So that's going to do it for the slate. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.